My goal is to give everybody some practical steps to stop spinning your wheels and make the playing progress you deserve. I want to kind of start off just to make sure we have all the right people here. For people who are in here who are brand new beginners or people who are already happy with their current practice methods, feel free to save your time, go watch something else, because this is definitely going to be geared more towards, I'm going to say, late beginners, intermediates, and advanced players. And if you happen to be frustrated and a discouraged late beginner and intermediate player who has been playing for years, let some people in here. And if any of these sound familiar, I practice all the time and I still feel like a total beginner, or I don't have as much time as I want to practice. And in my case, back in the day, if I didn't have as much time as I wanted, I would usually choose not to practice. So it could definitely fall in that way. Or I know what I need to practice, but I don't, or I don't know how, then you're definitely in the right place. That's kind of what we're going through here. I'm thinking it's probably going to be 50% application, 50% presentation. So I see a lot of people already have their guitars. That's awesome. We're going to be going through some specific things. My whys for doing this master class, I spent many years as a struggling player, and most of the struggle revolved around some flawed ideas I had about practicing and growing as a musician. This master class is exactly what I would have told my younger self decades ago. So I always wish I could do the Terminator thing and kind of go back and talk to myself 40 years ago. This is what I would say if I were doing that. I would say to clear up, I would definitely go back and talk about clearing up common myths about practicing guitar, about gaining a healthier and more balanced approach to practicing. I've done a lot of bad practicing in my past. And I would kind of talk about how to more easily set up a practice regimen that promotes becoming a better player every time I picked up the guitar. Believe it or not, every practice session doesn't have to end with frustration. You can actually get better each time as you go through. In this training, we're going to focus on designing an effective practice session, no matter how much or how little time you have. So if you're crunched for time, this could be a good thing for you, for sure. How to easy practice session tricks that guarantee you hit all the right areas for sustained growth and progress. Oops. Types of practice and why not applying them properly could be holding your playing progress hostage. And why intentional practice and knowing the reasons behind your practice sessions can make all the difference. And then last but not least, hopefully if time allows, some super simple practice tracking strategies you can start using today to get faster and better results in less time. So for people who are just coming in, hey, I'm Ty. I totally failed at guitar when I was younger. Happened to kind of jump into some situations that taught me a lot about music, but also introduced me to musicians who kind of kicked me in the butt and showed me a better path. And I like doing these master classes so I can pass that path on to you. So let's go ahead and work on designing an effective practice session, no matter how much or how little time you have. So practice item list aside, there's one crucial element most players miss when they enter into a practice session. Does anybody want to care to guess what that is? You can go ahead and speak up. Don't be shy.
Warm up.
Oh, it could be. Definitely. There's something before that. Anybody
Tuning.
else? What's that?
Tuning.
Tuning. Yeah, you have to be in tune for sure. There's something even before that, and
what are you gonna practice?
Okay. Yeah, you're on the right track for sure. So we want to always ask, how long am I intentionally dedicating time to becoming better on the guitar for this practice session? So there's a big difference from being intentional about, I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes actually working on specific things to become a better player versus, hey, I'm going to play a little bit before dinner, or maybe I'll play a little bit afterwards. It's that intentional dedication that really makes a big difference. So assigning and labeling specific amounts of time for progress-driven practice, that can definitely skyrocket any player's abilities in a very short period of time. I know some people on this particular call who have probably experienced this in the very recent future. So you want to be thinking about, how much time do you have up front? Sometimes it's tough. We don't always know, but if we can pinpoint it, that's the right first step for sure. So I just wanted to give kind of a really quick general order for practice sessions of any style or playing elements. We have acoustic players, metal players, blues players. We have a lot of different players. This is going to be a very general look at a sequence we can go through. So number one, obviously determine how long the practice session will be. Then we're going to go through a 3-stage warm-up. So Nick, you had that one right on. And then we have main objective practice and secondary objective practice. If that sounds like mumbo jumbo, no worries, we're going to kind of talk through that. And then there's a very strategic thing here at the end of creating and having fun playing music. We'll kind of dive in that a little bit later, but there's nothing like going through and working your butt off to play guitar and then not being able to have a little bit of fun with the skills you're developing. So you definitely want to kind of keep that creativity in there. Next, we want to assign a percentage of time to each section of training. So in this particular, since we have 4 different sections we're working on, I break things up into percentages of 25%. Practicing in percentages organizes longer sessions into logical parts, and it ensures that shorter practice sessions cover all the essentials so progress continues. So with this particular practice breakdown in this percentage, if you only have 20 minutes, if you go through these specific 4 sections, you're going to come out a better player. I don't know, I can't speak for anybody else. This is purely from my perspective. But I would typically, when I was younger, start maybe not even the warm up, but I would start playing around and my 20 minutes would get eaten up like that. I would, maybe I didn't have YouTube, but maybe I got to dinking around with some kind of songbook or something, and my time would go very quickly. And I can guarantee without a shadow of a doubt, I missed a lot of progress because I didn't go through these specific steps. So these 20-minute practice sessions add up and create pretty amazing results in the long run. So now we're going to continue with the time allotted and the roadmap to follow. It's time to grab a timer and begin the session. So if we're going to go through some application of the 3-stage warm-up. If we were actually starting, this is where I would pull up my phone, kind of get a timer going for that 5 minutes or however much time I had allotted. So let's go ahead and walk through the elements one at a time about the 3-stage warm-up. Does anybody already have a warm-up that they're following, just out of curiosity? Okay, very cool. All right, so if I asked what you typically start your practice sessions with, how would you answer? Be honest. I see some smiles. I know what that answer is.
Grab the guitar and go.
I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull it up. So if you, like most guitar players, answer, you just start noodling or playing, which I'm totally guilty of, it's probably safe to say that most practice sessions end without making a ton of progress. So you feel like you might have played some cool stuff, but as far as you progressing your playing, I put in here, there's no shame in the noodle because I started out that way. And sometimes that gets the dopamine going, so you want to practice. But it cost me a lot of time and progress. And unfortunately, there's a better way. So we're going to talk through this 3-stage warm-up. And I always go through these goals because they're kind of, I think they're kind of backwards from what most people would think. As we go through this, we want to think about engaging the mind on a much higher level than normal. We're going to be focusing on slowly preparing the muscles and tendons for playing, so obviously warming up. And then the last one, we want to shift from the mental state, the logical mental state, to the creative mental state. And there's a couple of reasons why that is important. I don't know about whoever's on this call. I have, you're doing what you're doing, but usually before I practice, I might be working on fixing stuff around the house. I might be working on taxes. I might be doing things that are basically logic oriented. And if I were to pick up a guitar and just jump right in, 0% of chance for progress, because I'm still worried about, did I carry the one in my checkbook? That kind of thing. Yes, I still use a checkbook, so you guys can giggle if you want. But I want to, as much as I can, shift from that logic, I'm going to say problem solving mode of, taking care of life, to more of a balanced and creative mindset. And so that's kind of what the big goal for this happens to be. For my 3-stage warm up, and for everybody that I work with, I work through fretting hand, finger independence, so no picking hand. And we're going to look at what that is here in a minute. And picking hand mechanics, we're going to look at that as well. And then hand-to-hand synchronization. So is anybody already doing finger hand independence things? It could be chromatic walks, spider walks, stuff like that. Yeah, okay, all right, we got a good group here. What about just purely picking hand mechanics? Yeah,
I find
okay.
I need like something to do with my left hand, but it can just like stay in one position.
Yeah.
Like I need a chord kind of thing, but
Okay, okay. I think what we're going to look at is going to help a ton. How
yeah.
about hand-to-hand synchronization? Yeah, kind of, sort of. Okay. I think when I was initially asking questions for this training, a lot of people said, I want to work on my speed, work on my technique, things like that. And this is actually between the picking hand mechanics and the hand-to-hand synchronization. That's where you tend to gain the most technique. I kind of look at speed as clarity and being able to do things precisely. And, that speed becomes a byproduct of that clarity. So that's, as we're working through this, that's kind of what we're going to be looking at. So now, what I want you guys to do, go ahead and grab your guitars. And I'm going to go ahead and change into big screen mode here. Okay. Change. So we're going to look at some finger independence exercises. And again, people who've been students of mine in the past, these are going to be very familiar to you. But if you're looking for something that will just kind of, again, we're mind, this is a good way to do it. And it doesn't take a ton of time, unless you happen to be in a super cold spot. It might take a little longer. So what we're going to do is I'm just really lightly laying my 4 fingers across the G string, and it's kind of tough to see, but I'm not pushing down. I'm just really lightly touching those. And then the goal that we want to do is I am, without wiggling my ears, without tensing my shoulder, without moving my arm, I'm just going to take my index finger up and back. So I'm keeping 3 fingers in place while I go up and back. Right on. There we go. And I'm thinking maybe 10 or 20, nothing too crazy. So I'm going to put that back. Now I'm going to switch into the middle finger. So my index finger goes back to that G string. There we go. Yeah. And if this feels easy, you're on the right track for sure, because we're basically just relaxing the fretting hand. So I'm going to put that middle finger back. Then we're going to switch to the pinky, because we've got some interesting tendon things in the hand that we need to go through. I'm switching through here. Yeah. Right on, Alex. You're making it look easy. Good. All right, now let's put that bad boy back. And now we're going to do the ring finger. And as you're doing the ring finger, you want to take note of, are there any other fingers that want to travel with that ring finger? Sometimes it's the pinky, sometimes it's the middle finger. Yeah, right on. Looks pretty easy for everybody. Okay, very cool. So, show of hands, is this pretty easy for everybody? Yeah, okay. All right. So let's go ahead and let's zip it up a notch. So if that's easy and you're able to stay nice and relaxed as you're doing it, let's put our fingers back and we're going to go index up, pinky down simultaneously. There we go. And this is going to sound a little weird, but you want to make sure that you're not flexing your calves, that you're not tensing your back. You're basically staying as relaxed as you can. A lot of people will, the little muscle underneath the lower lip will sometimes tense up. It's the weirdest thing. Yeah, it happens. All right, let's put those guys back, and I'm going to give you one more. Obviously, thinking about the combos you can do, you can do all the finger combos, but let's do index up and ring finger down. And we're going to try to switch those simultaneously. And it feels it can feel like it sticks at first, but basically what you have to do is get into that starting position and then go back and forth. All right, very cool. So who feels like they're getting a warm up already, getting a workout? Yeah. All right. I know anybody who's been in a class with me, they've done plenty of these. So the goal that we're looking for is we're not building strength so much, but we're just kind of releasing the tendons in the hands because you figure we drive, we type, we text, we shovel, whatever it happens to be, that tension builds up, and we are kind of giving as much freedom as we can to our our fretting hand as we can, so that when we think about playing something, our fretting hand can react. So that's kind of what we're looking at there. Let me swap over. So next we have, we've just done the picking hand independence, and now we're going to do we did fretting hand independence. Now we're going to move into picking hand mechanics. And Alex, I'm going to ask you, do you have anything specifically picking wise that you do?
I guess not. Well, I have an old teacher who like taught me about the curl kind of
Okay. Okay.
like practicing your curl like this going on every string.
Okay.
And we did a lot of string skipping exercises and like
Okay.
making sure that you're always kind of going one way with the pick and then the other, and
Okay.
that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Okay. Very cool. I'm going to share with everybody. Sorry. I've got so many windows open. Where? There we go. So this is my picking hand warm up. And this is kind of graduated throughout the years, but basically what I'm doing is I'm taking an A minor, shape 1 pentatonic, and you definitely can go through all the shapes if you know them, but if A minor shape 1 is kind of where you're at, and I am purposefully working the picking hand much harder than I am the fretting hand. So I'm playing 16th notes. We're not going to do this necessarily with the tempo, but I am picking through each note 4 times. And don't worry, I'll make sure you guys get the PDFs of these when I release the video. But I am going up and back in the minor pentatonic, and I'm doing what I call the fretting hand bounce. Let me stop this. I'll put it back up before we move on. But when I am working on trying to get my hands sunk together, I'm trying to pick harder, but I'm also trying to press as light as I can with my fretting hand. And the best way I've found to do that throughout the years is I just, instead of pushing down once and then picking 4 times, I'm actually pushing down with each note that I pick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's something that, especially, I'm going to say in the last 10 or 15 years, that's made the biggest impact in how lightly I can fret with how hard I can press. So in all of these picking exercises, I want you guys to be thinking about keeping that in there. I'm sorry, getting my Zoom wits about me here. So what I want to do, and we can go through this now, we'll kind of make this application. I just want you guys to kind of be going through shape 1 pentatonic, picking each note 4 times with that bounce going on. I'm thinking in 16th notes, and the way that I count it is digga chicka. So digga chicka, digga chicka. It could be 1 eanda, 2 eanda, or you could just count 1, 2, 3, 4. We're not necessarily going very fast. So I'm just gonna let you guys run through that a couple of minutes here. I see you guys blazing. All right. Very cool. All right. So in the interest of time, I'm gonna move down here. So progression, I'm doing 4 picks per note. Now we're gonna go to the same thing, but we're doing 3. So kind of like a triplet feel, but kind of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Again, very staccato, and I'm using that fretting hand finger bounce. So I'll let you kind of jump through that for 30 seconds. And, again, practicing in percentages, it really, if I have 5 minutes to go through this, it kind of helps me break down. Okay, we've got 4 exercises. I have to kind of work that through maybe a minute or so per each one. Is this bounce technique new to anybody? Yeah, okay, nice. Very cool. All right, and I'm going to go down to the next example here. Now, just like we had been, we did 4 picks per, 3 picks per. Now I want to do 2 picks per, still with the bounce. Kind of working through there. Nice. Okay, you guys are slaying. And we're going to pretend like that was a minute. And now we're going to go to the last one here, just 1 pick per. And you can kind of hear it stays a little staccato because your fingers are moving lightly as we're moving over there. Yeah, cool. All right. I know it's with the exception of everybody who is in Arizona where I am or further west, it's probably later in the day. You've probably already been playing, but can you kind of feel how this is starting to tighten up and getting your hands going? Now we're going to go for the hand-to-hand sync. And again, this is the uber important part because we've got our fretting hand going, we've got our picking hand working a lot, and now we're going to work on just making every time that our pick does something, our fretting hand reacts and hits at the exact same time, or vice versa. As soon as our hand presses down, our pick hits. And I call this is kind of like a stacked training here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play through these so you guys can kind of get a feel for it. This is something that you probably want to take and memorize away from this. But if we think about just technique wise in general, how fast we can play is determined by how fast we can pick a single note on a single string. So we don't have any fretting hand motion and we don't have any string changes. So in this first one, we're basically doing a controlled tremolo with bursts. And I'm going to pull up a metronome here, and I'll just give you a quick example. I'm just using metronomes off YouTube if anybody's interested. And so exercise number 1 here, tremolo bursts, I'm doing digga chicka da. Then I'm relaxing, so on and so forth. So I'm playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm making sure, turn that off, making sure that this, where I hit this last da note, that is very short and staccato so that I know it's in time with the click. Da, 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 digga chicka da. So do you guys want me to keep that metronome going while you try this? Yeah? Okay. Let's give you guys 30 seconds or so to kind of go through there. So digga chicka da, dum, dum, digga chicka da, ba, ba, digga chicka da. All right. Now, if I were doing this again, depending on how much time I had, I might just stick at 90 BPM and just kind of allow my hands to sync together with this tremolo plus the bursts. If I have more time, like if I have an hour and I'm doing 15 minutes in each practice section, if I have 15 minutes to do this, I'm going to try to ratchet up to whatever my high tempo is, just so that I know, okay, I can do tremolo bursts at 160 BPM, whatever it happens to be, because if I can move that headroom higher, then when I play stuff that is below 160 BPM, I'm way ahead of the game. My hands are sunk up way fast that way. So once we have our tremolo and our bursts happening, we're going to do a single string ascending 16th note with a burst. So this is kind of a tricky pattern, but it's basically I'm playing from the 5th fret to the 7th fret to the 8th fret on the B string, and then I'm going 5, 8 on the B string. So I get digga. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to slow the metronome down a little bit just so everybody can get a feel. And in a perfect world, we would have memorized these. We wouldn't have to think about them too much. But I'm thinking digga chicka da. There you go. I see you guys that have been working on this. All right. All right. For those of you that this is something new, is this making sense so far? Yeah. And this was 70 BPM. Was this easy? Was it right where it needed to be, or was it too hard? It was good. Okay. Again, you can work through these as you go through. The next one is just going to be a descending 16th note with the burst, and it's basically the reverse of this. So on the B string, we're playing 8, 7, 5, 8, 5. And for anybody, if you're playing through and it feels like, oh man, this is a little bit too fast, a trick that has always helped me is instead of waiting a beat and jumping right into it, I will actually give it maybe 3 or 4 beats, because in essence, you're giving your nervous system time to recoup and get ready for the next one. So I'm going to let this play at 70 BPM, and if this felt fast to me, I would basically, and I would let it kind of go as I relax. Ooh, and I'm kind of making sure I'm breathing. Yeah, right on. Good job, everybody. Okay, and in the interest of time, excuse me, next thing we want to do is basically turn on the right thing. We want to start making one string change. So the next thing we're playing here is basically an ascending pattern, and then we're going to go to the 5th fret of the high E string and then come back to the 8th fret of the B. And we're trying to get a nice burst in there. Give you guys a tempo. Digga chicka da. Digga chicka da. All right. Very cool. All right. And then last but not least, we're just basically going to reverse our single note string change. And we're going to start on the high E string at the 8th fret and kind of jump to the 8th fret of the B string and then back to the high E. And it ends up being true alternate picking as you're doing that. So I'm going to let this metronome play for maybe 20 seconds here. There we go. All right. Very cool. Let me go ahead and stop that. So that literally is that 3-phase warm-up. We're thinking fretting hand independence, working our picking hand really, really hard, and then putting our hands together with these short bursts of notes. Anybody feeling like they're getting warmed up? Anybody worry about anything outside of guitar in the last few minutes here? No. So that's when you know you've made that shift from worrying about lawn work or whatever to now you're ready to start practicing. Your mind is basically in that creative state where whatever you put into it, you're going to get some kind of payout after that. So that's awesome. You all kicked butt. All right, let me switch over here. Again, I want to try to honor y'all's time. Okay. So next we want to kind of get into one of the main problems that a lot of players run into when they're practicing. And I'm just going to kind of read this down so that we have the same ideas going on. Most players start with acquiring knowledge, like learning riffs, licks, tricks, complex songs, long before they have the technical proficiency to play those riffs, licks, or tricks. And when I'm talking about technical proficiency, I'm talking about things like timing, groove and groove feel, picking, strumming, efficient chording, hand-to-hand sync, all that good stuff. And those are never really developed in a functional way. And this leads to thinking that acquiring more and more knowledge will bring mastery. However, that never happens. So that's where we get into, kind of jumping along here, the practice modes. And so basically these are the practice modes that have proven the most effective in my development and in my clients' musical growth. And this is just a quick look. Mode 1 is appropriate skills. Mode 2 is to acquire knowledge. Mode 3 is to apply that knowledge. And then mode 4 is maintenance, and we'll kind of get into what these mean. Do any of these sound familiar to anybody? Has anybody broken things down like this for their practice? No. Okay. All right. Well, we'll definitely spend some time talking about them here. So I have stuck in the one mode zone. Most players start in the acquire knowledge mode and they stay there for their entire musical journey, constantly trying to find new information that will magically transform their playing, takes up the bulk of their practice time, and the rest of the time is spent noodling on the same 10 things they've played for years. Not realizing there are deeper levels to learning leaves them frustrated, stuck, and ready to bail at any moment. Anybody? Can I get a oh yeah? You're gonna get an oh yeah for sure. Just I put this in here just to prove I did once have hair, and we did have a lot of Halloween makeup. My story followed that exact path. I started learning guitar in the early 80s, and I jumped right into trying to learn Kiss tunes, AC/DC tunes, Ozzy, Def Leppard. I think there was some Pink Floyd stuff. And I never really built those foundational skills that I mentioned earlier. And that was basically left me doing a whole lot of practice, and I got frustrated. I'm going to go ahead and share the story now. So everybody's familiar with tab, I'm sure. That's like the big thing now. But back in the early 80s, there were a few things out with tab. And I remember getting a big, thick Iron Maiden book at the local music store. And I was like, yes, rock and roll is here to stay. And I took it home, and it was probably close to a month where it sounded like total yuck. I couldn't get it to sound right. And at the very back of this 200 or 300 page book, there was like a quarter page where it told me that I was reading everything upside down. So not only did I not have the picking skills and the timing skills and all that, I was doing everything backwards. So that struggle lasted a lot longer than I care to admit. Luckily, I was fortunate enough to find some really competent musical mentors through the years who were able to show me I had totally done it all wrong. And that's kind of where we're going to get into these practice modes here. So I want to talk about each one of these really quickly. Practice mode 1, I call this the learner mode or the appropriate skills mode. If somebody's a newer player, and I'm thinking like foundational new, that's stuff like chording, picking, strumming, timing, being able to play along with the click, all that kind of stuff. If somebody is more advanced, that might be building the skills you need to play in different styles, or going from a rock or blues background to playing like a jazz swing type thing. You have to appropriate those skills as you go through. Mode number 2, I call this the copy mode, but this is where you're kind of acquiring knowledge. Like I mentioned, that's learning licks, riffs, songs, strumming patterns, all that stuff by rote memory. And this can be a little tough because if you learn to play one Stevie Ray Vaughan lick for, I don't know, Rude Mood or something like that, if you are learning in this copy mode, you can't take that and apply it anywhere else. You can't move it to different keys. You can't move it to different styles. You can't break it apart and use small portions of it to create musical conversations. But this mode could also be just learning about things. So, learning about, I always use this example, and if it offends somebody, I'm sorry. But I talk with people all the time that I ask them about the caged shapes. Oh yeah, I know about the cage shapes. Cool, let's play through. Let's use those. And they maybe have watched 40 or 50 videos on the cage system, but they haven't actually used it on the guitar. That's definitely this copy mode or acquire knowledge mode. I've done that more times than I care to admit. Mode number 3, we get into the creator mode, and this is where we apply knowledge. And by using stacked and leveraged training, you're building skills to use these things in multiple applications. So one of my pet peeves is the 101 blues licks you'll ever need. They have those books at Guitar Center and stuff. That's cool, but it teaches you how to play one riff or lick in one key on one spot on the fretboard. However, if you're able to take that and create with it, this is where musical conversation skills start to come into play. If you've known me for any amount of time, you know musical conversations are what it's all about. So this is the fun mode for sure. Mode number 4 is going to be the maintenance mode. And this is basically maintaining a base skill level, knowledge, familiarity, and using your creativity in applications. And this is also where musical consistency and confidence to play with and for others is developed. So, you want to basically get to the point where you can speak music through your instrument so well that you want to get out there and play with other people. Because it's like, learning Spanish at home or something and never being confident enough to go out and speak Spanish with people. We want to get to the point where we've maintained our skills, we've built them up. Now we can go forth and conquer. Oh, went the wrong way. All right. So now what I want to do, I want to kind of talk through, since the majority of the players in this training are intermediate or advancing players, I wanted to talk through a sequence of these practice modes that might help you find freedom. And to do that, we're going to make a couple of assumptions. So as I was gathering information for this practice class, somebody had gotten back to me talking about they wanted to be able to use triads to jam with friends. And Alex, this wasn't you, was it? Okay. Yeah, I got a lot of feedback. But I chose this one just because it made a lot of sense and it seemed to go across many styles. So we're going to assume that one result that we want to have is we're going to take triads, we're going to jam with friends, and we're going to kind of go into this acquire knowledge mode. And if anybody has been with me for a while, you know about these 6 foundational things: groove development, fretboard mastery, ear training, music reading, learning songs, and scale into this fretboard mastery. So if the top priority is mapping out and using triads for jam sessions, we would start out acquiring this knowledge. We would gather the needed triad fretboards diagrams. I know this sounds very common sense, but you would be surprised at how many people don't think about, oh, I could actually go out to Frettastic and get the things that I need. That's why I want to bring them up here. We want to source out some appropriate ways to play the triads in the specific playing context. So, if you're playing arpeggios, if you're playing leads with triads, you kind of want to know what that end goal is. And then since we're using triads to play tunes, we want to download song materials you'll be playing at the jam session. So that kind of gets us into that acquire knowledge mode. Mode 2 is going to be appropriate the skills. So now it's time to hunker down and actually train and build the skills needed to acquire the knowledge, needed to apply the knowledge. And this is the step that I know I missed, and I want to make sure you all don't miss that. This practice mode could be as simple as learning to play the jam session tunes using triad shapes sourced out in the previous practice mode. But here's kind of a key thing. If you are doing this, you most likely want to do it in isolation. So that means no tempo, no song playing in the background. And this is just to kind of make this practice mode go faster. You want to make it as fast and easy as you can. It could also be as involved as learning to play your jam session tunes using triad shapes sourced out in the previous mode in multiple locations on the neck. For instance, playing in low triad parts, middle triad parts, and high triad parts. If you happen to be playing in a open mic situation, you don't know if there's going to be 3 guitar players and a keyboardist and a horn section. You might want to be able to play these triads up and down the fretboard in multiple places so that you can actually thrive at the session. But I would say let time and practicality be the driving factor in how detailed you get. So, man, if you're just getting together this Friday to jam with a bud, don't spend a lot of time, investing, learning cage triads everywhere. Just figure them out in 1 or 2 spots And that way you can get to having that musical conversation a little faster. All right, next up, we've got practice mode 3, which makes the most sense in this particular sequence. The application of gained knowledge is where the rubber meets the road and can take on quite a few different looks based on future goals. Again, thinking about this triad jam session thing, we would most likely want to go through the apply knowledge in 2 phases. Phase 1, playing to learn triads along with the actual song at slower tempos if needed. Slow tempo training is a great preparation. I have to say this just because it weighs heavy on my heart. We have technology now that is amazing. We can go in and slow things down without it changing the pitch. I got many a beatings from my dad because I would put quarters and all kinds of other stuff on the phonograph needle to slow down the record. I probably ruined way too many records, just scratched the crap right out of them. Now we have the technology. I say we definitely use that. And then phase 2 would be playing the song at the jam. So this is where you're actually getting in and doing it. This mode is simple, but again, it often gets overlooked. Playing stuff at slow tempos and then getting in there and playing it for real as quickly as possible. That's a huge one. And then for this particular learning sequence, we've got this mode 4 maintenance. So last up, mode 4 maintenance. I'm going to ask these questions because they're kind of rhetorical. We've all been there. But how many times have you worked really hard to learn a song or a technique or a concept only to forget it a short while later? We can all giggle and shake our head because we've all been there. This is where practice mode number 4 saves the day. By strategically reviewing learned items over a period of time, we can move things like fretboard diagrams, songs, and hard-won playing technique from short-term memory to long-term memory. And I'm really just talking about intermittent learning. Once you kind of get it into where you can play something, you have it memorized, then being able to kind of go back and review it intermittently for the next month or so, that's going to really get it in there. P.S. This really helps. I put this in there. I giggled when I typed it. This really helps solve the brain fog that happens when someone asks you to play something at a party. So how many times does it happen? Hey, Nick plays guitar. Play something for us. All the songs are gone. You can't think of anything. Even something that you listened to as a kid, it's out. So this really helps with that. Also, as you work higher up the skill ladder, the more important practice mode 4 becomes, because being able to maintain a higher base level of playing is what makes everything that you go through in the previous practice modes a lot easier. This practice mode is why pro musicians can learn new songs so quickly. They'll listen to it once or twice, man, they got it going on. They can figure out songs by ear on the fly, or pick up a guitar anywhere and play something that sounds awesome. They have basically worked hard to maintain their skills and knowledge to a high level by going through these practice modes, but then they maintain that skill level. So it used to just infuriate me. Friends that I've had in the past, they would hear something, oh yeah, it goes like this. Well, it hadn't dawned on me at that point that they'd actually worked really hard and learned a lot of music and used this mode 4 practice. Okay, I'm gonna ask this and then we'll take a couple questions here. Which practice mode are you in? So building a predictable, well-ordered path to mastery is made easier by being aware of the different modes of practice and applying them to learn, build, apply, and maintain skills is key. If you had to guess, which of the 4 practice modes have you spent the most time in? Does anybody want to share? Anyone?
Probably acquiring.
Okay, so practice mode 2, acquiring the knowledge. I did that for a long time. Better yet, which modes have you spent the least time in? I'll tell you mine. Maintenance, yep. I didn't even know that existed for so long. So if your practicing has felt stuck in the past, Has this training helped you find possible roadblocks? So has it kind of pointed out why you might have been stuck for so long? I know it did for me, for sure. Most of these modes are never discussed, but they're used all the time. And we've kind of shared the experience there. So let me stop there because that's a big chunk of information. Does anybody have any specific questions on what we've looked at so far? We've laid things out. We've kind of divided things up in percentages. And now we've got a 3-part warm-up going on, high value warm-up. And now we've got our practice modes happening. Is there anything that you have questions on or anything that you'd like clarification on? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question. I can't see. No, you all are good? Thumbs up? Okay, very cool. How are we doing on time? Does anybody feel like they want to do a break? No? Okay.
How much is left on this?
I'm gonna say maybe about 15.
Okay.
Okay. If you have to bug out, no worries, man. I'll make sure you get a copy of the
Yeah,
video.
I gotta go about now. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, I appreciate you coming. It was good to see you in
Yeah.
person.
Appreciate it too.
All right,
Thanks.
take care.
Okay.
Okay, very cool. Let's charge forward here. This is actually kind of where the fun comes into play. Did you have a question, Nick? No, okay. All right, now I want to kind of go through designing your perfect strategy. And we're basically, we're going to ask a couple of questions and then we're going to start putting a practice strategy together for your specific situation. So here are a couple of questions for you to answer before we lay out your practice modes. Who is your future musician self at your next level? So I wanted to give a couple of examples here. Are you playing for a spouse or loved one? If you're currently just hanging out in your room, cool, that's where you are now, but I want you to think about where you're at your next level. Are you jamming with a friend or with friends? Are you rehearsing and gigging with a band? Are you serving and playing at local events or locations like retirement homes or churches? You don't have to tell me the answer, but I want you to kind of come up with something along these lines. What is going to be your next musical conversation or your next level? And when you have it, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. That way I know when to move forward. Feeling good, Corey? Yeah? Okay, all right. I think you're muted, man. Sorry. All right, so next question. What 3 priorities of focus are absolutely crucial and essential for you right now? These are the 6. So anybody who's been training with me, you know these 6. You spent a lot of time here. But I kind of want to walk through these a little bit. When I started down here at Scale Foundations. I got an A minor pentatonic, and I basically got sucked into the guitar grimoire whole. I focused on everything. And then when I started actually playing with some hard hitting pros, I realized, oh, I should have started up here and got my groove going, being able to strum and pick in time. I should have found out where things were on the fretboard, should have got my ear going, so on and so forth. So I'll just give you guys a couple of minutes to take a look at those. I actually have a couple of these that I'm still working on. Does everybody have their 2 or 3 going on? Yeah, okay. Very cool. All right, so this is something that I'm going to say go through these action items when you're on your own, or if you already have, we're in a class, you don't have to worry about these. But basically, it's going to look like you're going to set a timer for 3 minutes. You're going to get out a sheet of paper, open up a doc. Start that timer, and you're going to really think through who your future musician self is in the next 6 to 12 months. What are you doing? Who are you doing it with? What guitars are you playing? Just getting really detailed with it. And then you're going to look over that list of 6 areas of focus, and you're going to choose 3 that you feel are most important. So in essence, we just did that. But I'm going to say give yourself a little bit of time, because by the time you get out of this training and all the information is kind of washed away, you might want to go back and revisit those. And then action item number 2, as you're going back through, is you're going to want to review that homework. And then we are going to go through and create your practice mode sequence. So I say, I usually draw these out. They could be in a spreadsheet, could just be a listing that you have on the Notes app on your phone. But given everybody who's here, we're going to do acquire knowledge, appropriate skills, apply knowledge, and maintenance. If somebody here was a total beginner, we might change that. Then we're going to kind of go through, and I'll walk through these steps. Again, something you can do outside of this training. You're going to want to list out and gather at least 3 sources of knowledge for your top priority topic. So that could be courses that you have, books that you have. I still have a stack of books probably up to my waist on different musical elements. It could be old DVDs. It could be something that you get from your instructor. But this is kind of where we're going to be acquiring that knowledge. I always say at least 3, because usually there's going to be one of those that weeds itself out. 2 are going to kind of jive with each other. 3rd one's going to be out in left field. If you would have just picked the one that was out in left field, you'd kind of be hosed at this point. So kind of be thinking about that. Step number 5, you're going to extract the needed info from each source. So if that's fretboard diagrams or training exercises, training materials, whatever it happens to be. And then step 6, this is super important. You want to ask yourself what needs to be committed to memory. So again, fretboard shapes, like we had the hand-to-hand sync earlier, I would say if you're working on those, definitely commit those to memory. And you want to invest the time at this stage to get things off of the page and into your brain. It's super hard to build those solid skills if things aren't memorized. Then we're going to move into mode 1 of appropriating skills. So this is where we kind of get into the act of creating a practice list. So we're going to create a list of items you need to work on. This list could include dates and tempos if appropriate. I'm kind of dorky like that. I like to know when I worked on something and kind of what the tempo markings were. If that's not you, you basically just want to do whatever works best for you. Could be handwritten or computer-based, totally up to you. And then you want to kind of begin training using the resources gathered in practice mode 2. I usually do a timer. So, if I'm in my 20-minute practice time, I'm going to be setting my timer for 5 minutes and kind of starting to work. And then you're going to want to write down whatever you practice. This is a cool thing to do just because it gives you a lot of motivation. You kind of look back and say, holy cow, I've invested some time here. And then number 10 here, you're going to want to repeat steps 8 and 9 until the things you're practicing feel second nature at moderate tempos. I put a note here. This is very subjective, but you want to be able to play at a medium tempo. So if something you're playing is, 160 BPM, I'm going way at the top of the level, you probably want to play around 80 or 90 BPM and be able to play without tension or strain, just in a very relaxed way. This is a hint that I use if it's something that I'm performing. If I can talk with somebody while playing these items, then I know I'm there. I always share specifically a drummer that I've worked with in the past. When he was working on preparing to go out on tour, he would play through entire tunes and sometimes entire sets, and he would say his phone number or he would recite his address. He would basically talk while he was playing and thinking about something totally different, that's when he knew he was ready. So there's a compartmentalization that goes on, but obviously he's making sure he's relaxed as he's doing it. It's just kind of something to put in there, and it's maybe shooting for the sky as you're thinking about it. We're working into the apply knowledge here. Begin applying the knowledge with the skills that you've been practicing. The end result scenario, like if you're playing a song, if you're improvising over something, if you're jamming with a friend, that's kind of where this apply comes in. Assuming that the first two practice mode stages were followed and applied until relaxed execution was attained, the results should speak for themselves. You'll know once you get to this point where it'll just, I always talk about how I'm always amazed sometimes when I've really worked on something, I can watch my hands doing what they do, and I'm like, who's playing that? It just feels like an out of body type experience. That's what we're aiming for. And then bonus tip number 11, bonus tip 12 here. If you're practicing if you're practicing for a performance, be sure to video yourself several times throughout your training sessions. So everybody who's working with me, I want videos. I want to see you. And you want to do that maybe 2 or 3 times per week. If you feel like I had performance anxiety when I was much younger, it was terrible, red light syndrome, shaky, sweaty, dry mouth, the whole thing. Now, if we can video ourselves more often and actually watch those videos, that's the key thing. We get over that performance anxiety a lot faster because we see, oh, wow, we're not as bad as we thought, but we also see the progress that we're making. And eventually you get to the point where you want to go out and you want to share that with other people. Your imposter syndrome drops off, the nervousness drops off, all kinds of good things start happening. And then the last few steps here, you want to, in the maintenance mode, you want to plan on practicing the items used in this sequence 1 to 2 times per week for the next month or so. So what I typically do in my practice log, I write down the days, usually at the beginning of the week, but I will kind of go and I'll front fill those. Hey, I've got to work on this scale pattern, or I've got to work on this song, whatever it happens to be. That way, when Thursday comes and it's my time to work on whatever it was I was working on, it's already kind of in there. So you want to make that as easy as you possibly can. And then step number 14, that's when you would start this sequence over again with your next priority or the next element. So if you were learning a solo, for instance, maybe you were learning the first 4 measures and you would have gone through those practice modes. Then you start it over and you go to the next 4 measures. You kind of start working through that. So, I like going through these practice modes because I don't get stuck in the acquire knowledge like we talked about, but it keeps me moving forward. It's just a constant plodding forward as I'm doing that. I always make a note of the first few times you go through the sequence, it will take some getting used to because it requires trust in yourself and your goals, but it's worth it every time. So yeah, I think that's where I'm going to put a fork in it right there. This is obviously a generalized walkthrough for building a sequence in the practice mode strategy. Hopefully this general walkthrough has given everybody an idea. Is that safe to say? Corey, do you feel like you have a better understanding of going through there? All right, John, Nick? Yeah? Okay. Very cool. You guys are troopers. Holy cow. You're kicking butt. Everybody probably needs to go to the bathroom like I did. Are there any questions? This was going to be kind of a Q&A type thing. I wanted to put this presentation together so you had something tangible that you could take with you. Is there anything I can answer? There's no sweep arpeggios at 1,000 notes per minute?
Will there be future renditions of this, like future classes?
Absolutely. Yeah, these are gonna be master classes that are gonna continue on. So yeah, this is the information portion of it. So maybe we make them more practical practice sessions as we go. I also like to do accountability practice sessions. I've done this with clients and students. I've done this with people that I've played with. We get on Zoom and everybody's kind of working on their own thing, but there's a weird camaraderie that happens, even though it's on Zoom, that, oh, I see my brothers there working on something. I feel good about working on it as well. So I like those community practice sessions. There's all kinds of fun stuff that we could do. That's a great question. Anybody else? No? I so appreciate you guys taking the time. I want to honor your time and your afternoons. I know everybody's got stuff to go do. So I'm going to sign off now. I will make sure everybody here gets a copy of, I'm going to probably list this on YouTube. So I'll send out the link. Make sure you get the slides and all that good stuff. That way, if you want to kind of go back through and look through that. And then, as always, if you have questions, hit me up. I'm always open to answering questions. All right. Very cool. Thank you all very much. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Ty.
You bet. Bye.